Well, hello everybody. I want to bring you up to date with what's happening on these cradle-to-grave trades. The S&P 500 is we have the short on it using a 3-to-1, and so far, it's trying to turn, but it hasn't been able to. So you had the big spike up on volume. That was a result of the quad witching that was on this bar, and then since then it's sideways 3 days. You've got oil coming out, inventories to numbers today. There's a high correlation between this index, or actually all the indexes, and oil. Oil looks like it's trying to turn. So again, it looks like some sort of a pullback is trying to take place. This was a 2-bar reversal the day before. This little 2-bar reversal here. Then you get the sideways move, which is what that tells you. Worst case, you'll get a sideways. Turned out to be a doji, which means again it can try and turn. The problem is the NDX and the NASDAQ hasn't. Now the other thing I want to show you here is that on a weekly you actually have a little doji at the top after a 5-week push, right? So on the 6th week here, and if you want to count the bottom bar, we're actually talking about 6th, and this is the 7th week. But on that push now, you got a doji, which is an over-under potentially, which is a 2-bar reversal on a weekly, which says sideways to down on the weekly. So we're getting really close to some sort of a pullback. That's what makes it so hard to do anything else. We haven't done anything else in the portfolio as a result of this, whether it be the KMI trade, whether it be any new trades, right? It's just you're so extended on the long side, it's hard to do anything. On this KMI, it's the same thing. Got to wait for a retrace, whether we buy in this sector or we buy in this sector for this particular stock or other stocks in this sector. We simply want to wait on the retrace to come back and then make the purchases. So that's where those trades are. I want to give you a new trade here today, and that's shorting the dollar. If we look at the dollar, the dollar made the big plunge, is making a little weak attempt to do a retest regen, a bearish one here on the daily chart. So it's coming back in doing a bearish retest regen. It's up a little bit more today. The area that looks key here is the overlap of these two wide price spread bars. So as it comes into this zone today, my ideal here is to short it. And so whether we short it, exactly right here or there or wherever, right, in that little area is the place to short it. And what are we shooting for? Well, on the risk side, right, you have to assume risk, somewhere back up around 25.20, so you got to give it 30 points or so. On the risk, on the reward side, you're shooting for this low, and that's about 24.20. So you're shorting up around 24.80, you're giving it about 30 cents, you're shooting for about a 60-cent move. It's about a 2-to-1. Now, whether you use this particular index, whether you use some other index, for example, on the weekly here, whether you move, actually, let me just pull the daily over and we can just look at them on the daily. Whether you use the inverse, so if you short outright on the UUP, that would be, you'd have to have a margin account. You could go long the UDN. Problem is this is very thin. So I don't particularly like trading thin stocks or thin instruments. So that's another option if you wanted to. Another option is to simply go over and take the counterpart of this trade, which is the FXE, which is fading in, and buy it. And to do that, you could either do the outright on the UUP, the FXE, or you could move to the 2-to-1 like the EUO, and you would short it. So any of these instruments will work. It just depends on what you're trying to do and what kind of account you have. Personally, I'll be shorting the UUP myself, just a 1-to-1 short. That's where we're at. That's the update for today. You will see that order here this morning. Thanks. Bye.